If history can't predict the future, it's useless.
Why?
Because prediction is the whole point. I mean, I study patterns, wars, collapses, crises, so I can see them coming. If history doesn't do that, I'm just wasting my time.
Tell me what you learned from studying the Holocaust.
Warning signs. How bureaucracy enables atrocity. How propaganda dehumanizes. How economic stress creates scapegoats. Those are patterns I can map forward. That's actionable.
Read this. Elie Wiesel, age 15, arriving at Auschwitz. Never shall I forget those flames that consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget the nocturnal silence which deprived me, for all eternity, of the desire to live. What pattern does that give you?
That's just one survivor's trauma. It's important, sure, but it's not systemic.
Then you've learned nothing.
I've learned how the machinery worked.
But not what it meant to be crushed inside it. That line deprived me of the desire to live. That's not trauma description. That's identity destruction. The flames didn't just kill his family. They killed who he was. If you can't feel the weight of that, you're cataloging data. You're not understanding history.
Feelings don't stop genocides. Data does. Early warning systems, structural analysis, that prevents disasters.
Then why do they keep happening?
Because we don't apply the patterns rigorously enough.
Or because patterns don't work the way you think they do. Let me ask you something. You studied Eichmann, yes?
The bureaucrat, train schedules, deportation, logistics. A perfect example of how systems enable evil.
What did he say at his trial?
That he was following orders.
No. He said he was good at his job. He was proud of his efficiency. Proud of solving complex logistical problems. He genuinely believed he was serving a higher purpose. That's what Hannah Arendt meant by the banality of evil. Not that evil is boring, that evil convinces itself it's doing necessary work.
Exactly. That's the warning sign. Watch for bureaucratic dehumanization.
But you're still treating him like a variable in a formula. Bureaucrat plus propaganda plus conformity equals genocide risk. You haven't asked the harder question. How did an ordinary man convince himself? I mean, really convince himself that this was right?
Because, he was indoctrinated.
You're describing mechanism. I'm asking about mind. What did his morning thoughts sound like? What did he tell himself when he couldn't sleep? How did he maintain his self-image as a good father, a good husband, while organizing mass murder?
Why does that matter?
Because if you don't understand how normal people rationalize atrocity, you can't recognize it forming around you now. Let me be specific. In 1937, an ordinary German school teacher writes to her sister, "The Jews aren't like us. They don't love their children the way we do. That's why this is necessary." She believes that, genuinely. It solves her moral crisis. It lets her stay, human in her own mind.
That's horrifying.
And if you only call her evil, you miss how propaganda creates psychological permission. You miss how ordinary minds convince themselves that cruelty is mercy.
But here's my problem. You're asking me to, empathize with perpetrators. That feels dangerous. Data doesn't make moral mistakes. Empathy does.
You're conflating conflating empathy with endorsement.
No, I'm recognizing risk. The more I understand their logic, the more I might start to see it as, reasonable.
Then you're doing it wrong. Empathy isn't agreement, it's forensic reconstruction. Think of it this way. A detective profiles a serial killer. She reconstructs his thinking, his triggers, his justifications, his patterns. Does that make her sympathize with him?
No. She maintains distance.
Exactly. Historical empathy is analytical, not emotional. You're not becoming them. You're understanding the machinery of their thoughts without adopting their morality. But here's what you gain. You learn to spot the same psychological patterns in real time. When you see someone start to dehumanize an outgroup, you recognize the cognitive architecture. That's prevention that actually works, because it operates at the level where atrocity begins.
Give me an example that's not the Holocaust. Something where this actually prevented something.
It doesn't prevent in the way you want it to. It's not a prediction algorithm. But I can tell you what it does. A historian who studied 1930s fascist rhetoric can read contemporary social media and recognize the linguistic patterns, the scapegoating, the nostalgia, the appeals to purity. Not because history repeats exactly, but because human psychology has consistent vulnerabilities. That's not prediction. That's pattern recognition through human understanding.
But data models can do that, faster.
Data models told you Brexit wouldn't happen, told you Trump wouldn't win, told you the Arab Spring would succeed. You know why they failed? Because they modeled behavior without modeling belief. They predicted what people would do without understanding why people convinced themselves to do it. The distance between ordinary life and atrocity is shorter than we think. And that distance is crossed through belief, not structure, through justification, not ideology. Empathy teaches you to recognize when belief starts to curdle.
So what do I actually do with this? I still need something, practical.
Stop looking for what will happen. Start looking for what people tell themselves. When you study history, don't ask, what were the warning signs? Ask, what did it feel like to believe this was normal?
That's still subjective. That's still subjective.
It's evidence-based. Letters, diaries, testimonies.
You reconstruct their logic from their own words, not your assumptions. Take that teacher I mentioned. You don't invent her thoughts. You read her actual letter. You see exactly how she convinced herself. That's rigorous. That's disciplined. That's empathy as method.
And then I judge her.
Absolutely. But your judgment becomes useful. You understand not just that she was wrong, but how she became wrong. And that teaches you to recognize the same process in yourself.
In myself?
You think you're immune. You think your moral clarity is permanent. Everyone is vulnerable to believing comfortable lies when the alternative is unbearable. Empathy doesn't just teach you about them, it teaches you about the human capacity for self-deception, including yours.
That's unsettling.
It should be. The point of studying history isn't comfort. It's honest reckoning with what humans are, not what we pretend to be.
But I came here wanting to predict the future, wanting to know what comes next.
The future doesn't repeat the past. It rhymes with it, in the key of human psychology. If you understand how fear becomes rage, how uncertainty becomes extremism, how ordinary people convince themselves that cruelty is necessary, then you have something more valuable than prediction. You have recognition.
Of what?
Of the moment before it happens. The moment when someone starts down a path they'll later call inevitable. Data tells you it's happening. Empathy tells you why they're choosing it.
Give me one thing to do. Not theory. Action.
Read one primary source this week. One letter, one diary, one testimony. Find the person's name. Then ask, what made their choice make sense to them? Not, what would I have done? That's narcissism. What made sense to them? That's empathy.
And if I do that?
You'll start to see that history isn't about right and wrong people. It's about human minds under pressure. And once you understand that, once you can inhabit someone else's logic without losing your own, you become harder to manipulate, harder to radicalize, harder to convince that cruelty is necessary. That's not prediction. That's immunity.
History as defense.
History as mirror. And the thing about mirrors, they show you what you don't want to see. The danger isn't that history repeats. The danger is that we do.